The sculpture is called Fanfare, and it's a celebration of the creative impulse. It's about what goes on in stages everywhere around the world throughout history. We have dance notation, musical notation, sound diagrams, lighting plots, costumery, the architecture of the set design, anything that takes place on the stage shows up in here somewhere, somehow. Some of it's buried actually, but it's there, I tell you.
How did you come up with the idea?
The starting point was, it's an aerial view of a stage. It's the plan view of a stage. But it goes back even further than that.
When I was a kid, the earliest moment that I became aware of notation was when my dad would be playing the piano and I would be scribbling on the floor, and then my dad would, after he'd finished playing the piece, he would look at me. He was a wonderful pianist. He'd look down at what I was drawing and said, "Oh, what are you drawing, Tony?" And I said, "I'm drawing the music that you just played." Oh, and he was tickled to death, so he picked it up, put it in front of him, and played it back to me. And I felt like, hey, this is easy. I can do notation. Always was involved with rhythms. And somewhere along the line in my life, I became more concerned with visual rhythms than with audible rhythms. Later on, in my early adult life, I was a physicist. Years later, I went back, looked through my notes, and I could recognize my handwriting, but I couldn't figure out what it was that I was saying. So it's an example of notation, the way a lot of people see notation, mathematics or music or light diagrams. They can't decipher, but they know that there's information there. When I'm talking about visual rhythms, a piece like this, for instance, as I'm doing these marks, it's like a dance. It's like there's a rhythmic aspect to it that I'll lay down this track, and then I'll come over and I'll lay this stuff down, and then this, and I'm building up it might be 20 or 25 layers deep that has it's a composition in a real sense, in the sense that when you think of a symphony as having all these different voices. That's what I'm working with when I'm working with sculpture or surface manipulation. When I'm sketching, I'm developing the ideas, and they're quick 10-second sketches. I don't worry about the lines being straight and the balance. I'm looking more for the rhythm and for the contribution that one sketch can make to the next. So I'll just flip through a page. Sometimes I'll go at it with some deliberation, but usually just for an area. And then what I do is I start collating. So I'll reach back into early sketches and I'll grab segments of that sketch and include it in the next sketch. Or I won't even think about it. I'll just do it, and whatever starts showing up, sketch after sketch after sketch, I know, oh yeah, that must be important to the design development, or it wouldn't keep showing up. And then as I'm actually building the piece, at this point, the piece is partially built, and things that I know how I want it to look, I always include them in the sketch because they're locked in. And although once in a while I do leave them out just to see, maybe that just because the piece, that little fragment of the piece is built, doesn't mean I have to follow it. It doesn't mean I have to use it, or I can turn it upside down or use it someplace else. When I was starting work on the maquette, which is the scale model, I wanted it to be as complete as it could so that the viewer can get a sense of what it's like to actually be there.